Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, we're coming up to the 6 month anniversary since my grandma passed away, and I asked my at the funeral. I asked my grandmother for one big favor, and it has turned out spectacularly well. So I'd like to shoot a video to talk about it. What had happened was my grandmother lived in Taipei, and I almost didn't want to go to the funeral because I was having a difficult time with networking with people here in the Phoenix area. I had just gone on a date for the first time in over 2 years at that point, and it took moving mountains to get that date to materialize. And I didn't want to miss out on opportunities. I was starting to get people in my orbit to consider helping me with this matter, and I didn't want the next thing I did to be to go away on a trip, right? You get the idea, right? Finally got the ball moving, but I took a look at the information and discovered that my grandmother was born just before Mary Curry had passed away, 1934. And I decided that maybe I could go talk to my grandmother and have her communicate with Mary Curry when she makes it to the other side. And so I attended her funeral. My grandmother passed away on December 5th, 2024. And uh, uh, the funeral was just before Christmas Day. And at the funeral, my dad was really upset about my attitude. I was singing the Peter Dislike prayers, and then I went up to the podium to talk about how I wished my grandmother would go talk to Mary Curry when she makes it to the other side. And my dad was so upset. He almost lost it at the funeral. Now, my uncle knows a little bit about psychology, and he calmed my dad down, saying that some people laugh at funerals. Everybody grieves differently. I didn't even realize that people laugh at funerals. I've since read about it, but thank God for my uncle because my dad was so upset. Now, Mary Curry discovered polonium. She isolated it from uranium ore, but polonium, after around the time of her death, it was discovered that polonium could also be made from bismuth. In fact, most of what we have is now made from bismuth. Uh, and so I left a chunk of bismuth in my grandmother's casket for her to take up to heaven to give to Mary Curry so she could continue her research. And so the casket, along with the chunk of bismuth and a bunch of other stuff in there, was cremated. And I was hoping to see the ashes before it was placed in the air. I wanted to see what turned to the bismuth, right? If you heat it to that high a temperature, right? Normally, I don't heat it up that high, right? Even the highest I ever go is when I have to recover bismuth from slag, right? But even that only goes up to 850 Celsius, right? The crematorium goes up to, I think, 1,500 Celsius. I want to see the result of that. But the urn was sealed before I got a chance, and I didn't want to make another wave because my dad was already so upset. So I let it be. And so the urn apparently has some kind of bismuth crystal in it. And so that was that. And then I left the funeral to have a short holiday in Taiwan. My family came back early. I stayed there for a short holiday. And for some unknown reason that I still cannot explain, I reactivated an online dating profile that I had not used in several years at this point. Give you an idea how long it had been. When I looked at the profile, I was aghast at what I had written. First of all, I was considerably heavier than I am today because I used to have binge eating kind of problems. And second, I talked extensively about my writing computer games. Now, I still write computer games, but it's not really the center of my life anymore. I had to delete most of it and start over again. And then before I knew it, I met a girl in Taiwan, and we were just recently, the last couple of weeks, we really our conversations really hit a new gear. Let's put it that way. Now, I thought that was my grandmother's blessing. I thought that was it, but that was only the beginning of the blessing. I came home to the United States, and I don't have the kind of good fortunes with dating here in the United States, which is why I need to consider moving to Taiwan. I'm going to be thinking about that in the next few weeks. I have a conference to go to. I was upset at how unsuccessful I was with the dating profile here in the US that I decided as a prank to ask people to swipe left on the profile. I posed for the camera, pointing left, saying, please swipe left to support this profile. Before I knew it, this one girl said that it was really creative and she wanted to get to know me, but unfortunately, she was traveling for business and lived in Houston, Texas. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to travel to Houston just over a date. But then the following week, two planes crashed. And then I remembered as a kid when four planes crashed in one day, how big a fear of flying I developed for many years after that. And I didn't want to repeat that experience again. And so, on a whim, I decided to go to Houston. For both for a fun vacation and also to get to see her. And at the time, the concept that my grandmother was blessing me weighed heavily on me, and so I thought that was one of the blessings. Well, we didn't hit the sparks or anything, but we're still chatting, and in fact, she and I still give each other suggestions on networking with people. She struggles too, actually. I come back to Phoenix, and the next week I was at a book club, and I meet what I like to call a distant cousin of Eve Curry because she is half Polish and loves literature. She's writing her own novel, but unfortunately, she suffers from a little bit of anxiety around dating and often shows up really late. And one day she was so late that I decided to, while waiting for her, read about the biography of the real Eve Curry. And that's when I discovered that one of Mary Curry's granddaughters, Helene, is still alive and very active. And I decided to email her. Long story short, that it's become a little more than just that one email. Let's put it that way. Nothing big, obviously. She's 97 years old. Actually, when I told my coworker thought that Helene might be misremembering me for somebody else. Right? She's elderly, after all. It inspired me to make. I was involved with Lego art already at this point, but it inspired me to build the Palace of Culture and Science, and so to impress Helene. And while doing that, I'm also Facebook friends with another celebrity in Poland, if you could believe it. While doing that, my connection with her also got kicked into another gear as well. That's still ongoing. I don't want to talk too much about that. But I like to think, especially the ones involving Mary Curry's family and the other Polish uh, people, I like to think that was the blessing from my grandmother talking to Mary Curry. And unfortunately, my dad was so upset at the time. After I had these blessings, my dad says he doesn't remember how upset he was. So that's good too. This is the Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum.